What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and this is a new episode of Fan-Made Exotics, the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon, armor, ghost shell, or heck, any Destiny exotic idea, and have a chance for a realistic concept art to be made for it. Now that's because I've partnered with the artists Benjamin Radiman and Michael aka Rageblade, who make fantastic concept art. Both of their deviant arts will be linked in the description down below. Now, if you want to submit an exotic idea, all you need to do is make a comment in the comment section down below, including anything useful for the artist if they pick your idea, the baseline of what your exotic does, its exotic perk, and any other perks or abilities and stats your weapon or armor piece may have. Now, on the docket for today's video, we are going to look at 5 featured concepts that all came from the comment section of last episode of Fan-Made Exotics. Highly recommend you guys watch that, especially if you're planning to submit an idea. You can see what kind of ideas we are accepting. Now, before we get started on those 5 featured concepts, a few important things to go over. Firstly, if you're planning to submit an exotic idea, make sure you're doing so on the newest video. If there's a newer video than this one, an annotation will appear right now leading you to that newest video. And secondly, guys, if you enjoy this series and want to support myself and the artists, make sure that you're also supporting the video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. The people who, take the time to share these videos on Facebook, on Twitter, etc., you guys are the reason we're able to keep making this series. So thank you so much to the people who do that. Now, guys, let's get started, and holy crap, we have got some fucking sick concepts to show today. Just incredible looking concepts. The first 2 are going to be Michael aka Rageblade, and the last 3 are going to be Benjamin Radiman. So let's start it off here with the Lawbreaker exotic sniper rifle concept by Alex Cifrele. Now, this weapon has a few unique abilities. Firstly, it has the passive perk Chamber Rounds. This weapon fires in a bolt-action sniper rifle style, similar to the No Land Beyond. Now, its base elemental damage is Void. However, each round fired after the first precision shot will change the element of this weapon to match the element of the subclass you're using. Now, this is combined with the exotic perk Lawbreaker. What this perk does is give this weapon an additional small chance to switch the element every shot. However, if it doesn't switch the element and it stays the same element, it's going to do bonus damage. Now, these are some pretty interesting abilities. Switching elements all the time, I definitely like the idea of having this weapon that does void damage. However, if you get a precision shot and then you have follow-up shots, those follow-up shots with the first passive perk are going to switch to whatever your subclass is. So that means that you can use this weapon in a variety of different circumstances depending on the burns. If it is a void playlist, that's great. You already have a void sniper rifle. You can use a void subclass, so it wouldn't switch off that void element usually. And then, you have this good weapon during that heroic strike, for example. However, if it's arc burn, the first precision shot is going to be the baseline element of void, and then it's going to switch to arc to match your arc subclass. This gives this weapon a huge degree of flexibility in the activities available in Destiny. And the idea of just switching elements back and forth, not many weapons in Destiny do that. I'm thinking of like the Murmur legendary fusion rifle from way back in the day. I think it was the Dark Below that came out, or maybe it was the Taken King, but in any event, it was literally years ago. So the idea of a weapon switching elements and giving you that degree of flexibility, and you're not only going to be playing stuff in burn playlists. Like, not every single time are you utilizing weapons for burn modifiers. There's plenty of activities where you just want a weapon with this degree of flexibility to deal with enemies with elemental shields. wizards have solar shields. It'd be great to be able to switch this weapon to solar damage, which is your subclass, and then deal with that solar enemy, and then switch back to void and deal with another enemy with a void shield. That is pretty damn useful. Now next up, we have a pretty amazing looking concept, the Neon Reaper. This is an ARC auto rifle concept by Ricardo Pina, and it's kind of modeled after the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare Repulsor SMG. This, first of all, looks absolutely incredible. I really want them, this is why I want them to expand the foundries in Destiny 2. This totally fits the MO of Omolon. Like, this looks like an Omolon weapon, and it actually is. And so this is the kind of thing I would love to see more of in Destiny 2, an expansion of the Omolon and the Haka and the Suros foundries, and just more awesome looking weapons like this. Now what this weapon does is that it has the exotic perk Flash Assassin. Now what this is going to do is it boosts all stats by 3% after you get a precision kill. So stats are going to be armor, agility, and recovery. A 3% boost is pretty minor. However, if you get 2 precision kills, suddenly 3 precision kills, suddenly 4 precision kills, now you've got a 12% boost. Now you're starting to get going. So this is actually a pretty dangerous weapon. It doesn't say anything in the perks about having a cooldown period or how long the stacks would last, and I think that there definitely needs to be something there limiting the stacks. Like, they can't just last forever, because by the end of a Crucible match you'd be unkillable. So I'd say maybe like 20 or 30 seconds, around that ballpark, the stats would start to disappear. Maybe even a minute. After a minute, the stats would start to disappear. But if you can get, 3 or 4 kills within that minute, and by the way, after a minute, the first few stacks would disappear and then the other ones would still be going, you're going to start to get, again, pretty dangerous with this weapon. And it would be very effective in PvE. In PvP, yes, you could go off and go on like a 10 kill streak and then become very powerful with this weapon. And I think, if you were good enough to go on a 10 kill streak, then yeah, you should be having a pretty substantial reward for that. But in PvE, it is so easy to go on a 10 kill streak. It is so easy to get 10, 20, 30 precision kills within a short amount of time, and then you're going to be super powerful. Your agility is going to be through the roof. You're going to be like Sonic the Hedgehog, speeding through strikes. You're going to be having a huge armor bonus. You're going to be very hard to kill. This would be so fun to use in a PvE environment. Just the base concept of getting that 3% boost to all stats, obviously, you may have to mess around with that. Maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 4% in terms of balance, and messing around with how long the stacks would last and perhaps how high they could go. Maybe you could only get 5 stacks at a time, but the base concept is actually, I think, very viable, and I think a weapon like this could definitely be added into Destiny, and it would be good in PvP and PvE. Now moving on from there, we have the Queen of Years, exotic sniper rifle concept by Dusty P9. Firstly, this concept also I think looks fantastic, and I've always been advocating for faction exotics, like an exotic dead orbit weapon, and this totally could be an exotic Queen's weapon. I think that they should have exotic weapons that you can get randomly out of the packages for leveling up the different factions. I don't know why they haven't done that. So, this weapon has a few unique abilities. Firstly, it has the passive ability Royal Skidism. What this does is that body shots will slow the target for a brief moment of time. So if you miss your headshot, you get a body shot, that target is going to just have, a second or so of slow movement, so they're just going to have a harder time to get away. Obviously, very useful ability, very useful especially in PvP. It'll let you get those double body shot kills a lot easier. This is combined with the exotic perk, the Queen of Years. Deals significant bonus precision damage when your super is charged. While this effect is active, getting a precision kill ricochets the bullet towards the nearest enemy, dealing any excess damage left over from the initial kill. So basically, it sounds powerful, and it is powerful. Like, being able to get a massive precision damage bonus, being able to shoot an enemy through the head, and then it ricochets and heads towards another nearby target, letting you get that double kill. That's insane. However, you have to have your super fully charged, right? And that kind of reminds me of the Tlaloc. The Tlaloc scout rifle, where you get a rate of fire bonus for keeping your super fully charged, is insanely powerful. It shoots so fast you can absolutely melt enemies as long as you have that super charged. In fact, it's so good, I made a video a while back calling it overpowered. That was maybe a mistake, but turns out not many people are willing to give up their supers for an increase to weapon performance. Like, you don't see many Tlalocs, even though it is a very powerful weapon. And I think this weapon would kind of be the same. Yes, you can give up your super to get better performance out of this gun, but it is a pretty big trade-off. Now, if we forget PvP for a little bit, this weapon would actually be insane in PvE. There's a lot of scenarios when you're, fighting a boss where you have your super fully charged, you're not quite using it, you're waiting for the ads to spawn, where a precision damage bonus would be so good in that scenario. And being able to get double kills would probably be easier, just more enemies and so on in PvE. So I think it's a very powerful weapon in both categories of Destiny. Now, moving on from there, we have the Declined Departure Exotic Hunter Helmet concept by My Name is Butter. Now, this armor piece has a pretty insane exotic ability. What it would do is take away your super, so you would no longer be able to utilize your super would be replaced by this ability. And what this ability is upon activating your super, you would teleport to the Hive Ascendant realm for around 4 to 5 seconds. So it would be pretty much identical to utilizing Phase Shift from Titanfall 2. So essentially, you would disappear. You would be transferred to an alternate dimension. You could still see the map and the enemies nearby, but you would be untouchable, you would take no damage, and you could inflict no damage as well, but you could just, run away from danger, run right behind an enemy so he wouldn't be able to see you, and then you would teleport back into the normal dimension and just, melee him in the back or shoot him in the head or whatever you need to do. Incredibly useful ability, of course, but that's why it would take away your super. That's, again, a pretty big downside. You're not able to use Golden Gun, you're not able to use Tether. You're giving up a lot to use this ability, and that's why, again, the ability is so useful. You can get a lot of kills in PvP, being able to literally disappear entirely and then reappear 4 to 5 seconds later. Like, that is dangerous. And I'm sure in PvE there'd be some very useful scenarios where you could use this as well, and you could actually be able to use this to kind of get around maybe instant kill mechanics. Like, if there's a mechanic where it kills your entire team, like let's say you've failed a raid mechanic in Vosik, you could just use this, teleport to a different dimension, not die, come back to life basically, go back to the main dimension, revive your teammates, and keep going. Kind of like the guy who utilizes a Sunsinger Warlock with Revive. Now, moving along, the last exotic concept we're going over today is the Fatalist exotic auto rifle concept by Gabrieloid Studios. Now, this weapon has a few unique abilities. Firstly, it has the intrinsic perk for the fleet. When the magazine is empty, you gain a faster reload speed and increased agility when reloading. That's just overall a useful ability, being able to, if you get caught reloading, you start getting shot at, you can run away quicker because of your increased agility, finish the reload, and then get back into the fight. This is combined with the exotic perk Fatalist. After a kill with this weapon, any remaining bullets in the magazine will do considerable bonus flinch. So that is definitely a useful ability. Having considerable bonus flinch is going to let you just have a huge advantage in 1v1s. However, it is kind of self-balanced. You have to get a kill first off to activate the bonus flinch, and on top of that, it only applies to the reserve rounds in the magazine. So you're not going to be able to go on absolute massive streaks where you're just flinching opponent after opponent after opponent, because once you reload, it's going to be reset, and you're just going to have normal flinching rounds until you get a kill with those normal rounds, and then you get the bonus. Overall, I think these are two just good abilities. Like, there's nothing absolutely incredibly, astronomical. You're not disappearing from a different dimension like the last exotic, but they're just overall two very useful abilities, and I see this being actually pretty decent if it has overall good stats in PvP. Like, you would be able to use this thing a lot in the Crucible, where those two exotic abilities would be quite useful. In PvE, it would probably, just be useful as well, but definitely not as useful. You don't need to be flinching enemies as much in PvE. Now guys, that is it for this episode's 5 featured exotics. Let's talk about some tips for getting selected. Firstly, try to make sure that your idea is realistic for Destiny. Getting a kill and turning into a dragon is cool, but it's never actually going to be implemented into the game. Secondly, try to make sure that your idea is self-balanced. Getting a kill and instantly getting an overshield is probably overpowered for PvP. Also, make sure that your idea isn't overly complicated. If you're writing paragraphs and paragraphs explaining your 10 different unique perks and it would take me half an hour to explain your weapon, you're not going to get selected. But with all that being said and done, don't be afraid to completely ditch and experiment with what is the traditional gun systems and gun types within Destiny. Don't be afraid to make SMGs, laser rifles, heavy sniper rifles. All of that stuff is totally acceptable. And guys, the last thing we're going to do is shout out all of the different creations from last episode. Firstly, we have the Jala's War exotic scout rifle concept by Gloundering804. Next up, we have the Zalo Confingate exotic scout rifle concept by Johnny Jew, and we actually have a different version of that as well. Moving on from there, we have the Zul's Legacy exotic auto rifle concept by Zul's Legacy. Now moving on from there, we have the Shining Dragon exotic gauntlets concept by Tyler Williams. And lastly, we have the Hyrith's Expirate exotic sidearm concept by Shadow Untold. And so guys, that is it for this episode of Fan-Made Exotics. Again, if you enjoy this series and want to see more, please remember to support these videos by liking and especially sharing. If you want to see more Destiny content and be kept up to date with the Fan-Made Exotics series, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want to be notified of new uploads, be sure to press the bell beside subscribe. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.